My fiancé Thaddeus suddenly developed a high fever and fell into a coma. When he woke up, he didn't recognize me. His gaze was as cold as ice, and he kept repeating the name of a woman named Serafina Whitlock. The doctors said he had suffered brain inflammation, causing memory confusion, and might never remember me. I refused to believe fate. I quit my job, searched everywhere for doctors, and even knelt outside an expert's door for 3 days and nights, all to help him regain his memory. But just as I found a glimmer of hope, his deep laughter echoed through the hospital corridor. Sending a chill down my spine, he told his friend, Isolde, she was just a stepping stone. Serafina is the bright star in my heart. I pretended to be sick just to be with her. In that moment, my world collapsed and my heart was shattered. I wiped away my tears and decided never to look back. But just as I turned to leave, the hospital intercom suddenly rang, and Thaddeus Underwood's trembling voice called out my name, begging for my forgiveness. Was he putting on a show for someone else? 2 years ago, I met Thaddeus while working on a project together. He was a vibrant entrepreneur, always full of ambition. We went from admiring each other to falling in love, and we weathered the lowest points of his career together. I stayed up late with him revising proposals, drank with him until we were sick to close deals, and even used all my savings to help him through the company's bankruptcy. He once held my hand and promised to give me the world after we got married. Now, our wedding is scheduled for next Saturday, and our wedding photos are hanging in our newly renovated home. With us smiling so happily. Who could have imagined that fate would strike me so hard at this moment? 7 days ago, Thaddeus suddenly collapsed at work and developed a fever that wouldn't subside. I stayed by his side in the intensive care unit for 3 days, not closing my eyes once, holding his hand. The doctors said he had viral encephalitis, causing memory confusion, and might forget the past few years. I refused to believe it, kneeling by his bedside, calling his name repeatedly, tears soaking his wrist. On the 4th day, he finally woke up, but the first words out of his mouth felt like a knife stabbing me. "Who are you? Don't touch me." Thaddeus suddenly pushed my hand away, his eyes staring at me like I was a stranger who had barged into his home. I froze, my heart racing, my throat tightening so I couldn't speak. I wanted to approach him and tell him I was his fiancée, but he shouted for me to leave. A nurse rushed in to comfort him, and I was pushed out the door, sitting against the wall with tears streaming down my face. The doctor told me that Thaddeus's memory might have regressed to several years ago, and he temporarily didn't recognize me, but with proper treatment, there was hope for recovery. I wiped away my tears and told myself I couldn't give up. I quit my job, contacted brain specialists both domestically and internationally, and even researched numerous cases online, all in the hope of helping him remember me and the time we spent together. Little did I know that this was only the beginning of my nightmare. A week later, I finally found Dr. Alastair Winslow, a renowned expert in neurology who had made breakthroughs in memory disorder research. I was so excited I could barely control my trembling hands. I flew to his city that night, bringing Thaddeus's medical records and pleading for him to make a house call. Dr. Alastair was moved by my sincerity and agreed to accompany me back to the hospital. But as soon as we entered Thaddeus's ward, we heard a sound that shattered his world. The ward door was ajar, and Thaddeus's laughter echoed from inside, sounding triumphant. I stopped in my tracks, a sense of unease rising within me. His voice came clearly to my ears. Isolde, she was just a small stepping stone on my path to success. Thaddeus's voice sounded casual, tinged with disdain. Back when the company was on the brink of collapse, she had used her life savings to help me through the crisis. I was grateful to her, but that was all. Serafina is the light of my life. Back then, she thought I was broke and chose to leave. Now that I'm wealthy, I must fulfill my promise to her. Faking an illness is a good idea. This way, I can break up with Isolde and let her move on. She has a soft heart. Once I comfort Serafina and pretend to regain my memory, she'll surely forgive me. After all, she loves me so much. Alastair stood beside me, his expression complex, looking at me with sympathy in his eyes. Isolde, I think there's no need to continue treating this illness. That's right, there's no need to treat it anymore. My feelings for Thaddeus don't need to be salvaged either. Just as I was lost in thought, the hospital room door suddenly swung open. Thaddeus's tall figure appeared at the doorway. When he saw me, his face first showed a hint of panic, but it quickly turned into impatience. He frowned, his tone as if he were shooing away an annoying fly. It's you again? I've already told you I don't recognize you. Why are you still looking for me? Insisting like this, you really have no shame? Stop pretending to be pitiful. My girlfriend is Serafina, and we're getting married next month. You're an outsider. What are you doing here every day? Do you want to be the third wheel? His words hit me like a blow, leaving me stunned. I leaned against the wall, sucking in a sharp breath from the pain, but what hurt even more were the humiliating words he had just spoken. Alistair is an expert in memory disorders. I went to great lengths to get him here. Why don't you let him take a look at you? Thaddeus's fleeting look of guilt was quickly overshadowed by anger. He raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face, causing intense pain. What are you doing? You want to call a doctor? I think you're the one with the problem. Let me tell you, I have a good relationship with Serafina. I don't need you pretending to care here. Alistair couldn't stand it anymore. He frowned and said, Thaddeus, please be a little nicer to Isolde nicely. Thaddeus interrupted him, grabbed my chin, and mockingly examined me. Someone like her? What's there to respect? She looks like a yellow-faced hag. What man would like her? Isn't it because no one wants her? So she's been clinging to me all this time? His friends laughed along with him. I wanted to expose his lie and tell him I knew he was faking illness. But just as I was about to speak, he said, Don't ever show your face here again. He let go of my chin, pointed at my nose angrily, and said, I don't have time to play these boring games with you. Get out of here. After saying that, he left with his friends, leaving me alone in the empty corridor. Alistair sighed and apologized softly, saying he hadn't expected things to turn out this way. I shook my head and forced a smile, telling him it wasn't his fault. In the days that followed, I didn't go back to the hospital. I locked myself inside and stared blankly at the house where Thaddeus and I had lived together. We had bought this house together, and every detail of the interior decoration held our memories. In the wedding photo on the wall, I was smiling so happily. But now it just felt jarring. Thaddeus didn't show up again, but he wasn't idle either. His social media was filled with photos of him and Serafina buying luxury cars, engagement rings, and going on island vacations. He even took Serafina to the mountain we had climbed together, saying he wanted to relive the excitement of our youth. Those memories, he once said, were only ours were now given to someone else. What hurt me even more was that he hadn't blocked me on his social media, making it feel like he was intentionally letting me see all of this. I couldn't resist clicking on the comments section, which was filled with well wishes for them. Thaddeus's mother, who had always been critical of me, was now praising Serafina in the comments, calling her gentle and gracious, and saying she was the perfect match for him. I felt sick to my stomach, but I forced myself to like every post, as if to convince myself that I didn't care anymore. But I knew it was all self-deception. Every night, I hugged my pillow and cried silently, my mind filled with Thaddeus's cold gaze and Serafina's smug smile. I began to doubt whether all the years I had invested in him were worth it, so I decided to leave. I applied to my boss for a long-term business trip to Canada, scheduled to depart 3 days later. The day Thaddeus and I were originally supposed to get married, I started packing my bags, preparing to let go of the past completely. But that night, when I returned home, I noticed a pair of men's leather shoes and a pair of elegant high heels by the entrance. My heart raced as I pushed open the door. The scene in the living room left me speechless. Serafina was sitting on Thaddeus's lap, lost in a passionate kiss, their clothes disheveled, and the air was filled with a subtle, charged atmosphere. They didn't notice me at all. I struggled to suppress the pain in my heart and was about to speak when I suddenly smelled a strange, burning odor coming from the kitchen. I instinctively ran over, pushed open the kitchen door, and the scene before me left me speechless. On the stove, a pressure cooker was steaming, and something seemed to be cooking inside, emitting a pungent odor. On the cutting board nearby, there was blood on the knife, and a few white hairs were scattered around. I looked at the trash can and saw a blood-stained blue cloth. It was Zaya Abai's collar. Zaya Abai was the Samoyed I had adopted 5 years ago. He was my closest family member. Before I met Thaddeus, Zaya Abai had accompanied me through many lonely nights. Every time I came home from work, he would happily wag his tail and jump into my arms, rubbing his wet nose against my face. When Thaddeus first moved in, he said he would treat Zaya Abai like family, but now he was in the pot. I felt a wave of helplessness, kneeling on the ground as tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision. I trembled as I reached out and picked up the collar from the trash can, feeling the warmth of Zaya Bai still lingering on it. I broke down and cried out, "Zaya Bai?" My sobs caught the attention of the two people in the living room. Thaddeus and Serafina rushed over, seeing me sitting on the ground. Thaddeus frowned, his tone slightly annoyed. "What are you doing here? Were you following me? You killed Zaya Bai. How could you kill it?" Thaddeus paused for a moment, then chuckled lightly. "Oh, that dog. I saw it running around the house when I came back, and I thought it was a stray. Serafina has been feeling a bit weak lately, so I thought I'd stew some meat for her to help her recover." His tone was casual, as if he were discussing a trivial matter. I jumped up excitedly, ran to him, and shouted, "That was my family. Why did you hurt it? I can get you a better one if you want." Serafina stood behind him, covering her mouth and giggling, her eyes sparkling with mischief. She walked up, wrapped her arm around Thaddeus's, and said sweetly, "Thaddeus, don't mind her. The soup is ready, I'm starving." Thaddeus nodded, picked up a bowl of meat soup, blew on it, and handed it to Serafina, saying, "Here, be careful not to burn yourself." I couldn't hold back anymore and rushed over, smashing the bowl on the ground. The sound of the ceramic bowl shattering was piercing, and the soup spilled everywhere, with pieces of meat falling to the floor. I knelt down, trembling as I picked up the pieces of meat, tears falling one by one onto the ground. "Zaya Bai?" I choked out, my voice hoarse and unable to form words. Thaddeus frowned angrily. "This is so annoying, get out of the way. Don't block the path." Serafina pulled his hand and said softly, "Thaddeus, don't waste your time on her. Let's continue." They turned and went back to the living room, leaving me alone in the kitchen, holding Zaya Abai's collar, crying so hard I could barely breathe. I remembered the first time Zaya Abai saved me. At the time, I was living alone in a rented apartment. In the middle of the night, a drunk neighbor knocked on my door. Zaya Abai rushed forward, barking loudly and biting the man's leg until the police arrived. It was injured, but it still rubbed its soft fur against my hand, as if to comfort me. From then on, it couldn't run around freely like other dogs, but it always stayed by my side. Now, it had been killed by Thaddeus, just to make soup for Serafina. I wiped away my tears as I gathered the meat pieces in the kitchen and put them into a bag. I wanted to give Little White a proper farewell and take it away from this place that had broken my heart. Just as I finished, I was about to leave when a commotion suddenly erupted at the door. Thaddeus's mother, Marigold Harrington, and his sister, Jessamine Underwood, entered and saw me, their faces immediately betraying their disdain. "Oh, isn't this Isolde? My brother doesn't even remember you. What are you still doing here?" Marigold snorted coldly, sizing me up. "I wonder what you're doing running to our house every day. You have no self-respect." I lowered my head to put on my shoes, not bothering to respond. Over the years, I've done a lot for Thaddeus's family. Thaddeus was busy starting his business, so I went to Marigold's house every week to help her with laundry, cooking, and taking care of her daily needs. When Jessamine got married last year, I gave her $5,000 to help with her dowry, but they've never shown me any kindness, always picking on me. Now that Thaddeus has lost his memory, they've become even more arrogant. Stop being so pretentious. Marigold walked over, saw the bag in my hand, frowned and snatched it away. "What's this? Did you steal something from our house?" She opened the bag, saw the pieces of meat inside, and threw them on the ground with a frown. "How disgusting. You want to marry my son? You're dreaming." I looked at the scattered pieces of meat on the ground and felt heartbroken. That was Zaya Abai's body, my last memory of him. I wanted to rush over and pick them up, but Jessamine pushed me away forcefully. I fell to the ground, my knees hitting the floor, the pain making me want to scream. "Don't make a scene here," Jessamine said coldly. "My brother now has Serafina. What right do you have to cry here?" Thaddeus walked over from the living room, saw I hadn't left, and frowned even deeper. "Why aren't you leaving? Do you want me to compensate for the dog's life?" He walked over, grabbed my arm, and dragged me forcefully to the door. I struggled, and the collar in my hand fell to the ground. Marigold quickly picked it up, checked it, confirmed it was leather, and put it in her own pocket. "Where did this come from?" "It must have been stolen from my son." I was so angry I wanted to grab it back, but Thaddeus blocked me. He looked at me coldly and said, "Enough, stop causing a scene here. That dog isn't yours, and this has nothing to do with me. Get out of here." He pushed me hard, and I fell onto the cement floor by the door, my knees scraped by stones, bleeding profusely. My clothes were covered in dust, and the bag in my hands had spilled, with pieces of meat scattered everywhere. I endured the pain, silently crying, and struggled to get up, picking up the pieces of meat from the ground. Over the years, I had sacrificed so much for Thaddeus. When he first started his business, I ate instant noodles with him, stayed up late revising plans, and even drank until my stomach bled while helping him negotiate with clients. For him, I gave up many promotion opportunities and even gave him all my savings. But this is what I get in return. I wanted to rush inside, expose his lies, and tell him I knew he was faking it. But the words stopped at my lips. What's the point of exposing him? The person he truly loved was never me. Girls should take care of themselves and not go to strangers' homes. Thaddeus stood at the door, coldly saying, "Leave. Don't let me see you again." I silently picked up the meat and looked up at him one last time. His gaze was still as cold as ever. As if he didn't even recognize me, I turned and left. The cold winter wind blew against my face, stinging painfully. I boarded the plane to Canada with Zaya Abai's ashes. The clouds outside the window kept changing, just like the emotions suppressed in my heart. In the winter of 2025, the air in Vancouver was cold and unfamiliar. I dragged my luggage and stood at the airport. The sunlight shone on me, but it couldn't warm the coldness in my heart. My boss, Octavia, was already waiting for me at the exit. She was a decisive woman in her 40s, her eyes always sparkling with confidence. She took my luggage, patted my shoulder, and smiled, saying, "I sold. Welcome to the new world. From today onward, let go of all the unpleasant things from the past." I forced a smile and nodded, saying, "Okay, Octavia, I'll do my best." Octavia's company was located in the heart of Vancouver, specializing in the design of women's consumer goods. She had noticed my planning skills and invited me to join her company several times. But at the time, I was only thinking about Thaddeus, so I declined her offer. Now, she is my only support. After work, I rented a small apartment with a view of the snow-capped mountains. At night, it was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. I placed Zaya Abai's ashes on my bedside table and spoke to it softly every night before going to sleep. Just as I had done before, work became my escape from the past. Octavia assigned me to a new project, designing a smart wearable device for young women. I immersed myself in market research, user interviews, and product improvements, so busy that I barely had time to think about anything else. My colleagues were friendly and professional, and the team atmosphere gave me a sense of belonging I hadn't felt in a long time. However, every time the night grew quiet, Thaddeus's cold laughter, Serafina's taunts, and Zaya Abai's wet gaze would flood back like a tidal wave, startling me awake and causing tears to flow uncontrollably. A month later, just as my life was beginning to improve, Thaddeus reappeared like a ghost, disrupting my peace. That day, I was in a meeting at the office, discussing the promotional plan for a new product. Suddenly, my phone started vibrating nonstop. A colleague handed me my phone, frowning and saying, "I sold. You have so many WeChat messages, dozens unread." I opened it and found they were all links sent by friends. Clicking on the video, it was Thaddeus posting on a live streaming platform in China, with the title, "Thaddeus Publicly Apologizes," pleading for a reconciliation. My heart sank, and my fingers trembled as I clicked on the video. On the screen, Thaddeus stood on a lavishly decorated stage, wearing a sharp suit, but his eyes betrayed his exhaustion. He held the microphone, his voice low. "I sold. I know I was wrong. The amnesia was a lie. I deceived you. It was my fault. All I want to tell you now is that the person I love is you, and always have been. Please come back and give me a chance to make it up to you." The audience erupted into applause, and the chat was filled with messages like, "Forgive him, he's so sincere." Octavia walked over, saw what was on the screen, and angrily said, "This man has no shame. How dare he keep acting? He's so thick-skinned." She pulled me into the break room, poured me a cup of hot water, and whispered, "I sold. Don't take him seriously. He's just using public opinion to pressure you. Don't fall for his tricks." I nodded, but the wound in my heart felt like it was being torn apart. Thaddeus' apology seemed sincere, but it was actually very insincere. He didn't mention Bai's death, didn't mention Serafina's provocation, and didn't mention the insulting words he had said to me before. He just wanted to use some sweet words to lure me back and keep me as his backup option. That night, I received a private message from Serafina. She sent a photo of herself and Thaddeus, with a pile of used perfume bottles beside them. She was wearing a low-cut dress, leaning against Thaddeus's chest, with several red marks on her neck. The caption read, "Sis, Thaddeus is still so powerful. He always has to hassle me for so long that I can't even get up. He also said you're like a piece of wood. And every time we're together, he has to spend a lot of time adjusting his mindset. Haha, sis, you should learn how to make a man happy." The ring on Serafina's hand was the wedding ring I designed for Thaddeus and me. This ring took me 2 years to design, with countless revisions, pouring all my hopes for the future into it. I never expected him to give it to her so quickly. I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, thinking of a harsh reply, but in the end, I just blocked her. What's the point of cursing her? She's just Thaddeus's accomplice. The real problem lies with the man who ruined my life. Thaddeus's live stream was like a bomb, causing a huge stir on social media in China. Netizens were divided into two camps. One supported Thaddeus, believing he could admit his mistakes and change, while the other accused him of being hypocritical, exposing his intimate photos with Serafina and questioning his sincerity. I didn't want to pay attention to these matters, but the news spread like a virus, flooding my feed. What surprised me even more was that Thaddeus's mother, Marigold, also got involved in this mess. She posted a lengthy article on her social media with the title "I Sold. Come back home, we're all waiting for you." In the article, she portrayed Thaddeus as a pitiful man tormented by amnesia and accused me of being too petty for giving the young man a chance to change. She also mentioned Zaya Abai, saying he's just a dog, yet Isolde keeps obsessing over him. How inconsiderate. Reading those words made me tremble with anger. Marigold has never treated me like her daughter-in-law. I cook and clean for her, yet she always complains my food is too salty. When I bought dowry for Jessamine, she accused me of being wasteful. Now she's acting like a loving mother, just to help Thaddeus clear his name. Octavia couldn't stand it anymore. She grabbed my phone and directly rebutted her in the comments. "Marigold, don't pretend to be pitiful here. Where were you when your son was pretending to be sick to deceive people, hurting the dog and insulting Isolde? Now you suddenly remember her good deeds. What does that even mean?" Her comment quickly received thousands of likes, and netizens began investigating Marigold's past, even exposing some of her less than flattering deeds from her youth. The public opinion began to shift, and Thaddeus's image of deep affection was now in jeopardy. At this moment, Serafina reappeared. She was live streaming in a white dress, tears in her eyes, declaring, "I am Thaddeus's true love. Isolde is just a homewrecker who ruined our relationship." Thaddeus had to pretend to be sick to get rid of her. Don't blame him. He's a victim too. Her performance sparked some controversy, and netizens began digging into her background, discovering that, after she went abroad at a young age, she had a relationship with a wealthy businessman, seemingly using that connection to achieve her current status. Some even posted photos of her with the wealthy businessman, where she looked stunningly beautiful, completely different from her current innocent image. Seeing this, I felt a mix of emotions. Serafina's true colors were revealed, and Thaddeus's image of his first love was completely shattered, but I didn't feel any satisfaction, because all of this had nothing to do with me anymore. I just wanted to focus on my work and live my life. In my second month in Vancouver, I led the team in completing the initial design of a smart wearable device. The product is primarily aimed at women's health management, featuring functions such as heart rate monitoring, sleep analysis, and emergency assistance. The market feedback has been excellent. Octavia praised me highly at the meeting, calling me the most promising planner she had ever seen. Colleagues clapped and congratulated me, but I felt a sense of emptiness inside. That evening, I returned to my apartment alone, turned on my computer, and watched the promotional video the team had created. In the video, the model wore the device we designed, smiling confidently and brightly. I suddenly remembered that I used to smile like that too, back then. Thaddeus and I had just started dating, and he once told me that my smile was the motivation for his hard work. But now, my smile had been destroyed by his own hands. I opened the drawer, took out Zaya Abai's collar, and gently stroked it. It still had some of its fur on it, soft and just like it used to feel. I whispered, "Zaya Abai, do you think I'm being too foolish?" Even though I knew he wasn't worth it, I couldn't let go. Tears streamed down my face and I wiped them away, telling myself not to dwell on the past. I opened my computer and began revising the promotional plan for the second episode. Work was my last hope. I couldn't let Thaddeus destroy everything I had. Just then, an anonymous email arrived in my inbox. Opening it, I found a video showing Thaddeus and Serafina in a hotel, engaged in intimate moments. The video was filmed discreetly, clearly a hidden camera recording. The sender had attached a message: Isolde Carmichael, this is the truth you need to know. Watching the video, I felt a surge of tension. In the video, Thaddeus was smiling, comforting Serafina, and speaking sweet words. At the end of the video, he took out the engagement ring and put it on Serafina's finger, saying, "This is my promise to you, Serafina. Once I end my relationship with Isolde, we will marry." I closed the video, my hands shaking so much I could barely hold the mouse. It turned out he never intended to come back. What he said about making amends was just another lie. I sent the video to Octavia. After watching it, she slammed the table angrily. "This man is too much, Isolde. We have to make him pay for this." I shook my head gently, my voice low. "Octavia, I don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. I just want to live a good life." Octavia sighed, took my hand, and said, "All right. Isolde, whatever you decide to do, I'll support you." I took a deep breath, deleted the video, and shut down the computer. At that moment, I decided to completely break away from the past. Thaddeus clearly had no intention of letting me live in peace. A few days later, he launched another reconciliation campaign on the live streaming platform. This time, he displayed the wedding ring I had designed in the live stream, nearly crying as he said, "Isolde, this is our shared memory. I know I made a mistake, and I'm willing to do anything to make it up to you. As long as you come back, all my properties and shares are yours." The chat exploded with comments, some moved by his words, others criticizing him for being fake. I didn't watch the live stream. Octavia angrily handed me the phone, saying, "This guy is so unreliable. How dare he use your design for publicity? Isolde, we can't let him get away with this." I looked at the screen, and the wedding ring on Thaddeus's finger shone brightly under the lights. That was the result of countless nights of hard work, yet it had become his prop. Octavia suggested exposing the truth to ruin Thaddeus's reputation. I thought about it and finally nodded. "All right, but I want to do it myself." I contacted a friend in China and asked him to upload the audio recording of Thaddeus' conversation at the hospital to the internet. In the recording, Thaddeus admitted to faking his illness, using me as a stepping stone, and breaking his promise to Serafina. Once the audio was released, the internet exploded. Netizens criticized Thaddeus, calling him a bad man and a fraud, and even Serafina came under fire. Thaddeus's live stream became a place for people to vent their frustration. With the chat filled with accusations, he tried to explain his moment of weakness, but no one believed him. Some even dug up his past scandals from when he started his business, claiming he had embezzled public funds and used my savings to cover the losses. These revelations snowballed, pushing Thaddeus to the brink of ruin. Serafina wasn't idle either. She cried in her live stream, claiming she was the victim of Thaddeus' deception and hinting that I was the third party who ruined their relationship. Her performance was poor, and netizens showed no mercy, digging up more of her sordid past and even exposing her chat logs with a wealthy businessman. She was completely panicked. Her live streaming account was shut down, and her account was permanently banned over the past 3 months. Under Octavia's leadership, I launched the Smart Wearable Device project into the market, with the first sale exceeding 1 million units and receiving excellent user reviews. The company decided to establish a sub-brand focused on women's health and safety. Named Lu Guang, with me at the center, Octavia said the name symbolizes hope, representing my emergence from darkness into light. I was constantly busy with brand planning, team building, and market promotion, handling data and brainstorming ideas almost every day. My colleagues jokingly called me the Iron Lady, saying my dedication was admirable. Deep down, I knew this busyness was a barrier I had erected to avoid memories related to Thaddeus. Every night when it's quiet, the urn containing Zaya Abai's ashes sits quietly on my bedside table. And I still feel a deep sadness, tears welling up uncontrollably. That day, I was in a meeting discussing the new product design for the Lu Guang brand when my assistant rushed in. Looking tense, "Isolde, someone is looking for you. They said you're the ex-boyfriend." My heart sank and the pen slipped from my hand onto the table. My colleagues looked at me curiously. Octavia furrowed her brows and whispered, "Isolde, What's going on? I nodded, took a deep breath, and told myself to stay calm. I'll handle it. As I opened the conference room door, I saw Thaddeus standing in the middle of the lobby, dressed in a suit, holding a bouquet of bright red roses. He wore the familiar smile I knew, but now it felt forced. When he saw me, he hurriedly walked over, his voice trembling slightly. Isolde, I finally found you. I've been trying to find out about you for months. It's driving me crazy. I looked at him coldly, my tone calm. Thaddeus, what's the matter? If it's not about the collaboration, then there's no need for us to continue this conversation. His smile froze and a flash of panic crossed his eyes. Isolde, don't do this. I know I was wrong. I came here to ask for your forgiveness. Can we start over? People in the hall began to gather around, whispering among themselves. Thaddeus seemed to have prepared this all along. He suddenly got down on one knee, pulled out the wedding ring I had designed from his pocket, held it high, and said loudly, Isolde, marry me. I swear I will love only you for the rest of my life, and spend the rest of my life making it up to you. The crowd erupted into chaos, some taking out their phones to snap photos, others cheering and urging her to accept. I looked at the ring and felt a pang of discomfort. This ring used to belong to Serafina, and now he's using it to propose to me? His love is as cheap and fake as those trinkets sold at a flea market. Octavia rushed to my side, furious, and demanded, Thaddeus, what gives you the right? When you pretended to be sick to abandon Isolde and humiliate her, did you ever think this day would come? Now, this display of deep affection is truly unbearable. People around us began to discuss the situation. A few colleagues recognized Thaddeus and pulled out their phones to find his previous live streaming videos. Watching and commenting as they did so, Thaddeus's face turned pale, but he clenched his teeth and knelt on the ground, pretending to be pitiful. Isolde, I know I've done many wrong things, but I've truly changed. All these years, there hasn't been a single woman by my side. I've been waiting for you, I sneered and said slowly. Thaddeus, when will your performance end? Back then, you said I was your stepping stone and Serafina was your shining star. Now you're coming back to me wanting to reconcile. Do you think I'm some kind of doll you can call and summon at your whim? My voice wasn't loud, but every word was clear. The people around us fell silent, their eyes fixed on me. Thaddeus's lips twitched slightly, and a flash of unease crossed his eyes, but he forced himself to remain calm. Isolde, you've misunderstood me. Those words were spoken in a moment of confusion. I love you? I didn't want to hear his excuses anymore and prepared to leave, but he suddenly rushed forward, grabbed my wrist and spoke in a pleading voice. Isolde, didn't you say you'd forgive me? No matter what I did, you can't go back on your word. I forcefully shook off his hand, pointed at his nose, and coldly said, Thaddeus, some mistakes can be forgiven, but some absolutely cannot. You betrayed my trust, hurt my family, and now you want me to believe you again. It's unbelievable. A round of applause erupted from the crowd. Octavia clapped first and the other colleagues followed suit, saying, well said. Thaddeus stood there speechless, his face pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but I interrupted him. Don't ever show your face to me again, Thaddeus. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. I turned and walked into the conference room, closed the door, and leaned against the wall, my heart racing. Octavia walked over, gently patted my shoulder, and said, Isolde, you were amazing today. That unreliable man isn't worth your time. I nodded, forcing a smile. Thank you, Octavia. I'm fine. But only I knew that the wound in my heart was still throbbing. Thaddeus's proposal sparked a lot of online discussion. Some people called him shameless. Others sympathized with me, but more people began to take notice of the Lu Guang brand. Our products unexpectedly gained popularity due to the incident, orders surged, and the team became highly motivated. Octavia joked that Thaddeus had inadvertently provided us with free publicity. I focused on my work, hoping to distract myself from the lingering gloom. Just before the Lu Guang brand launch event, a crisis emerged quietly. That day, I received an anonymous email containing a fake contract accusing Lu Guang of plagiarizing a European company's design. The email threatened that if we didn't pay 10 million in compensation, they would expose the matter and damage our brand. I immediately forwarded the email to Octavia. After reading it, she frowned and said, this contract has many issues. It's clearly a trap. Isolde, someone is trying to frame you. We hired a lawyer to review it, who confirmed the contract was fake, but the other party had clearly prepared everything in advance. The next day, A domestic marketing account exposed that the brand might have plagiarized, attaching a screenshot of the forged contract. Public opinion erupted, with netizens criticizing us, and some even began boycotting our products. The company's stock price plummeted, and everyone in the team was on edge. I held an emergency meeting overnight with the team to gather evidence and prepare a counterattack. Just then, I received a private message from Serafina. She sent a photo of herself with Thaddeus's mother, Marigold, at a cafe with the message, "Sister, the game has just begun. If you want to protect your brand, you'll have to cooperate." Looking at the photo, I felt a sense of unease. Serafina clearly didn't intend to give up easily. She had teamed up with Marigold to use this plagiarism incident to target me. I immediately informed Octavia of the situation, and she slammed her fist on the table in anger. "That woman is ruthless," I sold. "We can't just sit here and wait." We decided to take action. Octavia contacted the media and held a press conference, presenting evidence of the forged contract and inviting a representative from the European company to clarify that the design was entirely original. Meanwhile, I had my team thoroughly investigate the source of the emails, and we unexpectedly discovered that the IP address of the emails pointed to a small public relations company in China, which was owned by Serafina's cousin. The truth was revealed, and I personally announced the investigation results at the press conference, exposing the connection between Serafina and the public relations company. The media caused a huge stir, and many netizens began sharing the news, accusing Serafina of being malicious and shameless. Her social media accounts were once again suspended, and netizens dug up her past negative news, accusing her of aiding and abetting. Serafina's plan completely failed. She posted a lengthy statement online, claiming she was merely a pawn manipulated by Thaddeus. But no one believed her. Her reputation plummeted, and even her wealthy friends publicly distanced themselves from her, stating she was just an ordinary friend. After the crisis with the Lu Guang brand was resolved, we seized the opportunity to launch the second phase of our products, which received an even more enthusiastic market response. I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship forum in Vancouver as a keynote speaker to share our brand story. On the day of the speech, the venue was packed with audience members. Standing on stage, I shared the philosophy behind Lu Guang, hoping that every woman could use technology to live safer and more confident lives. At the end of the speech, the audience applauded enthusiastically. As soon as I stepped off the stage, I spotted a familiar figure backstage. Thaddeus had lost a lot of weight. His eyes looked tired, but there was a determined expression on his face. He walked over and whispered, "I sold, congratulations. You're doing well now." "And I'm glad." I furrowed my brows and coldly asked, "Thaddeus, what are you doing here?" He gave a wry smile, pulled a letter from his pocket, and handed it to me. "This is what I wrote for you," I sold. "I know you might not forgive me, but I still want you to know that I regret it." "Really?" I didn't respond and prepared to leave. But he suddenly grabbed my hand, his voice choked with emotion. "I sold, I've sent my mother and sister back to our hometown. They won't harm you anymore. I've investigated Serafina's affairs. It was she who was stirring trouble between us. I've completely cut ties with her. Can you give me another chance?" I pushed his hand away, looking at him firmly and sharply. "Thaddeus, is your regret because you've lost me, or because your lies have been exposed, leaving you with no dignity? You never loved me. You only loved your own petty self-respect." His face turned pale, and his lips trembled as he couldn't speak. I continued, "All these years, I've been sincere with you, accompanying you from nothing to where we are today. But what about you? You used my love to elevate yourself, hurt my family, and insulted my dignity. Now, what right do you have to ask me to come back?" The staff at the venue heard the commotion and came over to ask what was happening. Thaddeus lowered his head, his voice hoarse. "I sold, I know I was wrong, but I truly love you, love." I laughed coldly. "Your so-called love is giving my ring to Serafina and hurting Zio Bai in front of me. Thaddeus, I can't bear such love from you." After saying that, I turned and left, not wanting to look at him again. Behind me, I heard Thaddeus's soft sobs. But I wouldn't soften my heart this time. His tears were merely the consequence of his own actions. After the forum concluded, the Lu Guang brand successfully established itself, becoming a model in the women's consumer market. Octavia and I began planning global expansion strategies, preparing to launch the brand in Europe and Asia. Several young designers joined the team, sharing my enthusiasm for the future and striving to make the world a better place. One day, while working late at the office, I received an email from a friend back home. The email mentioned that Thaddeus's company had gone bankrupt due to some scandals, and he was facing severe financial difficulties. He had returned to his hometown and was now making ends meet by doing accounting work. Serafina had completely disappeared, and it was said that she had returned to the countryside and hadn't been seen by anyone since. I closed the email and walked to the window. The night sky in Vancouver sparkled with stars, as if telling new stories. I picked up Zaya Abai's collar and whispered to it, "Zaya Abai, did you see that? I'm doing well now and won't cry over those who don't deserve it anymore." Octavia walked in with a bottle of red wine, smiling and saying, "I sold. Let's celebrate, our brand is set to debut in Paris next month." I took the glass and clinked it with hers under the lights. My smile was bright and confident. The pain of the past has become the driving force for my future. The future belongs to me, held firmly in my hands, warm and real. I looked up at the starry sky outside the window and thought to myself, "Isolde, you've finally become your own light."